Today I'm going to show you guys how to make your foundation last longer. Hey everyone and welcome back. If you are new here then hello, my name is Zoe and this is my YouTube channel. Today's tutorial is all about how to apply foundation to last all day. As a makeup artist, I feel like a lot of people I speak to suffer with this problem. I'm always getting asked sort of how to make your foundation last all day. So I have plenty of foundation tips and tricks to put in one video today to help all of you guys out. Hopefully after today's video you guys won't have this problem anymore. If you do like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. And if you want to see my long-lasting foundation tips, then keep watching. So this is going to be my long-lasting foundation routine for dry skin because I have super dry skin, and foundation is like the biggest part of your makeup routine, so if it's not going to last then your whole makeup is going to be ruined and that's not going to last either. So before we even start to think about foundation, especially when it comes to dry skin, prepping the skin for foundation first is key. If we put foundation straight onto dry skin which hasn't been moisturised, it's going to start clinging, drying up throughout the day, and it is going to wet off because it's got nothing to cling to, because the skin underneath is just so dry. It's going to start clinging to patches and things. We don't want that. So for my moisturiser, I like something that leaves quite a tacky feel to the skin because I don't use a primer. So at the moment I'm using a mix of two. So the first one is this, I don't know what you would call it, like a serum. It's from The Ordinary, it's the hyaluronic acid, and it comes with like a little pipette. So I just do 2 drops of this because this does become quite tacky on the skin. So I just press this on. And then over the top of that, the daily moisturiser that I use is the La Roche-Posay Toleriane Ultra Fluid. This is the intense soothing fluid for face and eyes, so you can use this as an eye cream as well. It's really nice. I like it because it's lightweight, but it's just so moisturising. I use that on my clients as well. So just a couple of pumps of that, and I apply this everywhere, and the excess I'll put down my neck as well because we can never forget that area. So you can see with the light sort of how that's giving a nice moisturised glow. It doesn't sink into the skin straight away, so my foundation is going to have something to cling to when I apply it. I don't really like talking about skincare too much on here because I know nothing about skincare really. So we have a nice hydrated base now. My skin feels really comfortable, really supple. Supple, is that the word? I think so. And I can still feel a little bit of the moisturiser on top, so that is perfect. So next we need to pick our foundation. So if you are more dry, try and stick to a more natural finish foundation or a more luminous finish foundation. Some people that I do speak to go for a matte foundation because they presume that a matte foundation means it's going to be long lasting, which isn't always necessarily true. For somebody who has got more oily skin, then yes, you would go for something like that. But if you are more dry, you are then putting a drier product on top of already dry skin, if you get what I mean. If I want a super long lasting foundation, if I use a matte foundation on my skin throughout the day as my skin becomes drier, a more matte foundation will start again clinging to areas which I don't want it to and start to wet off. So that is not what I want. So I always go for a more natural to luminous finish, especially if I want this to be a super long lasting makeup. So I have a few which I do really like. My everyday foundation which I find super long lasting is the L'Oreal Pro Glow, which I use all the time on here. Second is the Milani 2-in-1 foundation and concealer. Again, it's more of like a natural finish. Use that all the time. Another one which I love is the Rimmel Wake Me Up, which I am going to use this today because I feel like this is the only one really that I haven't used for a while on this channel. Plus I have tanned as well, so the colour I have will match me for once today. So I'm going to give it a good shake. Applying foundation is personal preference. I prefer a beauty blender. I just feel I can get the best coverage and I can really work this into the skin. With a brush sometimes, because I've got sensitive skin, it aggravates it a little bit. So for your sponge, you want it wet but you don't want it soaking wet. So soak it under the tap obviously until it doubles in size, and then squeeze out as much water as you can, because the wetter it is, the more it's just going to start taking the product off as you're trying to put it on. And a little trick which you can use as well is to spray your sponge with a bit of setting spray as well. So we will do that to make it last longer. Okay, so I'm just going to pop a couple of pumps of this just on the back of my hand. And I think the key to a long-lasting foundation is definitely layering. So whether you want a full coverage, medium coverage, or more sheer coverage, layering is key. And I just feel like layering your foundation, building it up slowly, does make it last a lot longer. So I will first just place this everywhere, mainly onto the centre areas first, because that's always where I need a bit more coverage. And then with my foundation sponge, I start patting that in. Now you don't want to be too light-handed and too soft with it. Really press it into the skin. Start in the centre and then work your way out. My main aim, because I like more of a medium to full coverage, is to try and get the most coverage using the least amount of product, because that way the less product you're using, the less chance that it is it's gonna start moving about or wearing away. And I could spend ages just pushing this into the skin. If you're using a brush, just keep buffing and really press it in. I could probably spend like 20 minutes just buffing in my foundation. So that is just one sheer layer, and I've really pushed it into the skin. Now I can go straight in with a second layer. So I'll just, again, starting in the centre. If I just went in and put like 3 pumps of foundation straight onto my skin, it's not going to work in well. You're going to find it so hard to blend, and it is just going to sort of sit on top of the skin rather than becoming part of the skin. The more buffed in it is, the longer lasting it is going to be. I think foundation is just one point you just can't rush when it comes to makeup. So again, pushing it right in. 2 to 3 layers usually does me for my kind of coverage. Remember also you are going to be applying concealer as well, so I don't really go up towards my eye with the foundation, because obviously the more product that's under my eye, the more chance there is of it creasing. Okay, so we've built that up to a nice medium coverage now, and you can see that the base is really luminous. So we can move on to concealer now. I'm going to use the Makeup Revolution, the Super Size Concealer. This one's in C5 under my eyes because I'm always quite dark there. And then I'll also run this as well anywhere where I feel sort of wears off quite quickly. So this can give me a little bit of extra coverage. So my chin always wears off quite quickly, and so does my nose. If you've got any redness or anything, and the cracks of my nose is where I get quite red, and also in between my brows there. And I think that is pretty much it really. So to blend that in, I go in with the same side that I applied my foundation with, because I just feel like it blends better that way. So again, we're pushing it right in. Don't be afraid of being like more heavy-handed with it than you think. And I'll always leave the under eyes to last, because as that starts to set down and dry, you will get a little bit of extra coverage that way without applying more product. And I bring my concealer down like right onto like the centre of my cheeks as well, because I feel this area here is always where I need the most coverage. So without applying more foundation, I can just bring the concealer down a little bit, blend it into my foundation and get a little bit of extra coverage that way. Again, the aim is you want to use less product, because then there's less opportunity for it to become shiny throughout the day or become cakey throughout the day, which we definitely don't want. The more that you work this in, it's not going to lift and it's not going to take any product away. It's just going to really work it into the skin so it's not sitting on top. It'll be much more long lasting the more you work it in. Okay, so now is that opportunity to do cream contour / bronzer. I wasn't going to, but I've decided I am now. So I'm going to just use the Insta Duo Stick from Rimmel. I'm just going to do a little bit just on my cheeks. And then just a little bit on my forehead. So with this, I would have to buff it out with a brush. So I'm just going to use a really small little buffer contour brush from Real Techniques. And I'm just going to buff this out and then up onto my cheeks so it adds as like a little bit of a bronzer moment as well. Because we've worked that foundation in, it's not really going to move the foundation around, it's just going to buff this sort of over the top. Okay, and then again, the sponge straight back over. If you want to, you could apply a little bit of extra foundation if you want to, but I'm happy with the coverage, so I'm just going to leave mine like that. Okay, so I'm really happy with that base now. Now is the time, the crucial part, which is setting it. So if I just left this without setting it, of course, it's so luminous and you can feel it's still quite tacky, so it is going to run off my face even though I've got dry skin, because a more luminous foundation isn't going to dry down like a matte foundation will. But with this, we can work this to our advantage a little bit. So if I put a matte foundation onto my skin, I would really struggle with setting it because one, my skin's already dry, two, the matte foundation is going to dry down quite quick and really cling to my skin quickly, so I'm not going to be able to set that, and then throughout the day it may become shiny just in certain areas. It is going to start to sort of cling to areas or wear off in areas because we're not going to be able to set it. However, using a more luminous foundation, when I put powders onto this now, the foundation is going to sort of suck all them powders together and sort of lock itself in place. So we can also determine how much we want to set certain areas as well, because again, we don't want to set this down completely matte or else it's going to become dry throughout the day. So it's quite strategic when you've got dry skin, and I promise these little techniques are going to make your foundation last a lot longer. So I will use my favourite of all time, my Mercier translucent powder. I will set with the loose powder quite heavily where I've applied most of the product, which is down the centre of the face, and then I will either not use it around the perimeter and just use my bronzers and things like that, or I'll just use a brush and just do a light go over. Down the centre of the face is where I have applied most of the product, so to set that I'll use more of the powder and I will use a damp sponge as well. Using a damp sponge to set your makeup is so much better than just using a brush. If you've not tried it before, this is going to set anywhere a lot stronger and it will be a lot more long lasting than if you just kind of spritzed over it with a brush. So I can still get a good lockdown on my concealer and my foundation, make it really long lasting, but without it becoming like quite cakey and having to feel like I've got to wear a lot of powder. So yeah, I'm just going to put it on now, stop talking. Okay, so I'll just pick up a little bit like that. I'll start with my chin, because that area I've applied foundation and concealer, and my chin area always wears off the quickest. So you can see I haven't baked, I'm just really pressing the powder right into the foundation. So then for the under eyes, you might just want to go over just quickly with your sponge first, just to get any creases out. And then again, you can see I've applied quite a bit of the powder, but because the foundation and the concealer is more of a luminous finish, it can suck up a lot more powder. So it might look like a lot, but the more you press it in, the foundation just sucks it straight in and sets itself. So it's not going to look too heavy on the skin. Same with the other one, so about that much. Starting in the centre where you've applied most of the product. And again, it looks like a lot, but the more you press it in, the more it just sets itself, sucks up all the powder. Another place that wears off quite quickly is down the nose, because we're always touching our nose. We're always sort of itching, blowing our nose, so that area is one of the main areas which will wear off quite quickly. So again, pressing the powder right in. So the final place that I set is right in the centre of my forehead, because if I do become shiny throughout the day, which isn't very often, it's that area there. Plus we've applied more product there than we have anywhere else. So concentrate mainly on the centre areas and any places which you may become more shiny throughout the day, which I don't tend to come that shiny because obviously I am more dry. Okay, so now when you feel those areas, they feel nice and set, really nice and smooth, and in the mirror they look like a nice sort of flawless finish. So now when you feel the outer areas, you can still feel a little bit tacky, you can still see some of the luminous finish to it, which is nice, and we do want to keep that because obviously throughout the day our skin is going to become more dry, so we want to stay comfortable. We don't want to completely matten this down. So for the outer perimeters of my face, I don't always set that. So because we're going to be applying bronzer, I nearly said foundation there, but we've already applied it. Because we're going to be applying bronzer and blush, especially over the cheeks, that's 2 extra powders that we're going to be putting over the top of this, and they are going to set it as we apply it. So instead of using my sponge this time, I'll just go in with a little bit of the translucent powder, just tap off any of the excess and just really lightly just press over the top. When you have more dry skin, it is sort of getting that balance in between. One, you don't want it to be too set and too dry down so it becomes dry throughout the day and then starts to wear away because it starts to cling in certain areas. And 2, you don't want to keep it too luminous so it feels too tacky on the skin. So when you touch certain areas, you don't want it to wear away. It's really hard, but I promise doing it this way will help you. So next we're going to move on to bronzer. So I'm going to use the Makeup Revolution bronzer, which I've been really enjoying. Rather than rubbing around because we don't want to disturb all the hard work we've just done, I'm just going to start patting the bronzer on. This is also going to help just set those areas in place. The more we start to sort of buff, the more chance it is that we're going to start moving the foundation underneath the round, because remember the outer part isn't as set as the centre. And I don't know if I 100% like this bronzer yet. I haven't made my mind up. Sometimes I feel like it's just a little bit orange for me. And then for blush, I'm going to use Luminoso, which is my all-time favourite. And again, just kind of pressing this on rather than buffing it about. And then for my highlighter, I'm going to use Champagne Pop, and this is the only product which I kind of buff in. So just with a really light hand, because I don't feel like you can really tap highlighter on, just with a really, really light hand. I'll just buff this over the top of my cheeks and then just around my forehead as well. Okay, and then the final thing that I will do is just take my beauty blender again. It's only very, very slightly damp, and I'm just going to press over everything one more time and just really press it in, just so I know all the powders have really melted into the foundation and set them in place. And then very finally, I will do a setting spray. Now, I don't believe in primers 100%, but I do believe in setting sprays. They make such a massive, massive difference. My favourite of all time is the Urban Decay All Nighter setting spray. I feel like your makeup does not move when you use that. I don't have that with me at the moment. I only have the MAC Fix Plus, which I do also really like, especially for more dry skin. If you're using a more matte foundation and you have got dry skin, this is a really nice one just to help set it in place, just to take the matteness off a little bit. So I'm going to use this. So give yourself a good spritz, but then you want it to dry straight away. So just waft it dry as quickly as you can, just so it locks it all in place. So I've just finished off the rest of my makeup, and that is my long wearing foundation routine for dry skin. I'm going to do a wear test as well, so if I remember, I am going to insert clips here of what my foundation looks like later on tonight. But yeah, I really hope you picked up some tips from this. Let me know in the comments if there's any sort of particular things that you guys do at home to make your foundation last longer. But applying my foundation this way for me does make it really long wearing. So I really hope you liked today's video. Let me know if you did in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!